Hello, Shabana Mahmood, and thank you for taking an interview with Ladywood Unite. My name is Andy Northcott. I'm part of the Ladywood Unite team, and to confirm, Ladywood Unite does not support any particular candidate or party. We just want to get to know you a bit better and your views too. This interview is recorded and will be posted on our website and our YouTube channel. I presume that's all okay. Just very quickly, how are things going? What are the main issues that you're picking up as you talk to people in the Ladywood area?
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you for having me on for this interview. It's a real pleasure to be able to talk to you, Andy, and then by extension, other residents as well who are involved in particular with Ladywood Unite. Things are going well on the campaign trail, as you would expect, with a general election on. The biggest issues remain cost of living. People are very worried about making ends meet. They are still feeling the pressures of the economy and the position that's been in for the last few years. So yes, bills, energy bills in particular, prospects for jobs in the future, and then a broad range of other issues that you'd expect in a constituency like mine. Lots of worry about the future, climate change and so on.
And of course, regeneration for us is a biggie. What is the remit of an MP to intervene in the regeneration? Obviously, you've committed to survey again, to meet with the managing director of Birmingham City Council. How much power do you have to actually shape what happens? And is there anything further on top of those two things that you can actually do?
Yeah, thank you for that question, because it's a good opportunity to clarify and put the record straight. I know lots of residents, you wouldn't expect people to necessarily be across what a member of parliament can do and what councils are responsible for. So regeneration, new developments on either local authority owned land or plans that councils have for delivering on housing and so on are very firmly within the remit of the local authority. So in our case here in Ladywood, that is Birmingham City Council, and those powers are quite broad ranging. They are long-standing legal powers. And so in terms of driving what happens, the people that do the negotiations, the people that do the planning, the people that have legal authority to sign off, that remains within the cabinet and the leadership of the local authority at Birmingham City Council. So as a member of parliament, having a direct role in that process is not something that I have the legal power or political power to do. There's no power of veto, for example, so no member of parliament can stop a regeneration from happening, because, as I say, the legal authority for all of those things sits with the Birmingham City Council in respect of our area. What a member of parliament can do, and what I've been trying to do, is to lobby, to campaign, to try and give voice to the broadest possible range of opinion from the people that are affected, and then to use my position essentially to try and make sure that those concerns are taken into account and are at least forming part of that negotiation process and that planning process for what happens in our area. So I guess I'd say that the role of a parliamentarian is a little bit like a campaigner, but with obviously the sort of platform that comes from being a parliamentarian to try and escalate those issues. The council don't have a legal responsibility to respond to me or any other member of parliament, but obviously would recognise, generally speaking, that is the appropriate thing to do, because we are advocates and representatives for the areas that we represent. And that's why I undertook my own survey, because I didn't want to be reliant on the council's work on consultation. I was already worried that that wasn't going to be extensive enough, so I did my own, which is exactly what you'd expect most members of parliament to do. But I wanted my own data, my own information, to be able to make representations to the council about where I think residents are at, but also how best to serve residents in the area and to get their views fully heard and hopefully taken into account. I've met with developers and other people to try and influence them taking resident voice seriously in everything that they do, and that's something that I will carry on doing.
So how do you feel that the project is going in relation particularly to your 3 red lines? Obviously you're about to survey again, but at this stage, or if you're elected, you've committed to do that. But at this stage, you talked about transparent consultation process, the provision of specialist advice. guarantees for those who want to stay in Ladywood that they can, and that community facilities are at the heart of the project. From your perspective, how do you feel the project's going?
So I don't feel that the consultation and the work with residents is where it needs to be. I don't think that the council has done a good enough job on this. I think that when the project was first announced, there was a recognition from the council officers that I had meetings with straight away that they'd not got resident communication right. But I found that very frustrating, because actually there was a concession that they hadn't done it right, but then there were just a lot of warm words about what would happen next. And I don't feel that that has been the experience. And even as of course, we're now in an election period, and, you know, there are no members of parliament at the moment, but until the election was called, even as the member of parliament, I didn't feel that the communication I was getting from the council was sufficient. I didn't think it was in depth enough. And I also didn't feel like it was proactive. So this is the other problem that I have come up against with the council on a number of other issues, including this one, which is everything happens when you chase. It's all very reactive when things are going wrong, and then you have to sort of go to the nuclear option of really getting very angry and, you know, writing very firm, very strident letters, you know, chasing people around the building to kind of get people to sit down and engage. And I wanted this regeneration project, if it's going to be successful and if it's going to lead to a, you know, revitalized community that's very happy in Ladywood, enjoying new community facilities, everyone that wanted to stay is here, or you know, for this to work out as the best possible project it could be, it needs more proactive drive, which I think has been missing, and the communications and the consultation with residents, I think, is the first sign that that proactivity I feel has been missing, which is why, if re-elected after the election, I will be doing my own two things, which is another fresh survey of all the affected residents, but actually I want to try and carry out my own effective
briefly, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I want to carry out my own audit of what the council said they were going to do against what we think has actually happened, to try and do what happens in government, which is called a RAG rating, where you basically mark whether they are on course or off course, and then I would want to present that not just to the council cabinet but to the commissioners that are in the city to say we really have to do better.
We would appreciate that. I'm just conscious that we're at the moment in a stage where the developer agreement is being worked through, and obviously it will come to being signed, I think we've been told, sometime around September. What can you and would you be willing to do to support us to ensure the council does not sign the developer agreement on terms that are disadvantageous to the community of Ladywood?
So again, as a member of parliament, I can certainly give voice and make representations and advocate for resident views to be taken into account. And if I'm able to do a fresh survey and an audit, I would hope that those findings are taken seriously.
So do you have the opportunity to actually ask to see the contract?
So no, because it's a commercial contract, so the council are not obliged and normally would not show contracts to third parties like parliamentarians.
Is it worth, in this situation, actually you asking to see it, and they may allow you to see it?
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to make any asks, but I do know that all commercial contracts are never shared with parties that are not parties to the contract. So I can make the ask. But as a former lawyer, I'm pretty sure that the council's lawyers would have something to say about that. So,
okay.
but I have always I always ask for everything essentially, and I just wait for them to respond to me. And I've asked to be kept in the loop, and I will certainly want to see if I can get my hands on those terms as well.
Okay, thank you. And as part of your first red line, you talk about the specialist advice which we've been promised. As yet, we've heard very little about it, but we're in the process of these charter workshops, and we're having to do that without yet any specialist advice being provided. What can, again, you actually do to help secure that specialist advice that the council has promised us?
Yeah, so again, what I was also reassured about, or at least what the council said to me when I met with them to talk about how the consultation process had not worked, was that they were going to, it's normal practice across different local authorities to appoint individuals who are able to support communities in making their representations and trying to have, most ordinary people don't sit there. I wouldn't be able to sit there and look at a plan and work out where everything should go and how it should work. It's not my skill set, and it's not the skill set of most ordinary residents. And so you bring in specialist advice to help people think through things like planning challenges, the need for transport to move around, and so on. And that, again, I was assured that that would happen. I don't believe it has. And certainly residents I've spoken to, not just through the recent meeting I had with Ladywood Unite, but actually a broad, a range of other residents as well, just feel like they still don't really understand what's going on, let alone be able to make educated, contributions to the planning.
We really need that advice.
No, I know. And so what just before the election was called, my team and I had done a call out to other parliamentary colleagues who've had regeneration projects in their constituencies to ask about what are the sorts of specialists that they've seen engaged in their areas, so that I could go back to Birmingham City Council and say, these are the sorts of people that do this work for others and have done it successfully. And so could you have a look at what you will do for us? So I know it's lacking. I'm not willing to sit back and just watch that continue to be lacking. I didn't want to ask the council because I wanted to make sure that the person that's appointed is someone that we would have confidence in, which is why I asked colleagues to say, what's your experience of who's good at this? And then I wanted to make a pitch to the council to say, these are the people we think are good. Could you bring someone from here or similar into Ladywood? And I will certainly carry that on post-election if re-elected.
I'm very conscious of your time constraints. So moving on to affordable housing, Birmingham Development Plan says minimum should be 35% affordable housing. That seems to be in line with your manifesto commitment to deliver the biggest increase in social and affordable house building in a generation. Do you agree with that 35%? And if so, will you continue to press the council to make sure that that's part of the contract?
That is absolutely Labour Party policy, and in fact, for our new towns plans, if we're elected in government,
we want to focus on Ladywood.
No, definitely. What I was going to say is that for our new towns project, we actually want to see that increase to a gold standard of 40%. So, we are the Labour Party. We believe in social and affordable housing, and we think it's high time that a national government sets proper targets that are enforced, that increase the quantity of social and affordable housing. Of course, I want that to be the case in Birmingham as well. We start with a 35%. I guess what I'm saying is that's not the limit of our longer term ambitions for where we want to be, because you need a mix of housing supply in this city and across the country. But we go in, but if we are going into government, we go in with a desire to have the biggest house building programme that the country has seen, certainly since the Second World War, and housing, social and affordable housing, both of those categories will be a big part of what we want to do.
Just a couple more questions. Again, I'm just conscious that we're coming up to the end of our time, but on that front, on the CPOs, the compulsory purchase orders, your manifesto also says that you won't be afraid to make full use of intervention powers to build the houses we need. Do you feel is there a bit of a conflict there in that we have good housing here that is going to be apparently CPO'd according to all the information we've been given, and you're willing as a party to actually push for developers and councils to be able to use CPO powers. What would you do to commit to representing homeowners here? And is there a conflict there with your manifesto?
Look, I think that being completely honest, there's always going to be a tension between the need to deliver big housing projects, particularly those that include more social and affordable housing. But any new housing is always going to create some tension with those that either are homeowners or owners of land that they might not want to give up for that particular housing project. That is a tension that runs through the planning system. But what we've seen over the last 14 years in particular, but longer than that, is that there is just the planning system gets in the way of us building homes in this country. It actually gets in the way of us building pretty much anything in the country: infrastructure, prisons, which as the Shadow Justice Secretary I'm responsible for. And the problem with that is where the housing market is concerned, the lack of building has led to a broken market, right? So rents are through the roof. People struggle to get a mortgage. We have stifled the home ownership dreams of our young people because we just have not built enough. So we are going to have to be much more forceful in the way we use our powers and the powers that we have to get houses built in this country. And I think that is a fight that we're willing to have and to take on, regardless of the inherent tensions. But one of the biggest things actually, and for what the main issue where CPO powers are needed, is where you see speculators sitting on land banking essentially, and just waiting for an increase in value and playing the system. So they end up being the blockers. So it's not just sort of, traditional, what you might consider NIMBY style people who just don't want any homes built near where they are. But you have a lot of land banking in this country. It's not acceptable. It forces up the prices for everybody else for perfectly good land that just sits there and nothing happens. And so we want to be able to use, the powers that are already there. And, if they need strengthening, that's what we're willing to do, to make sure that that kind of speculator behavior doesn't prevent homes being built for the people that need them in this country. I would never lie to any of you and pretend that means that all homeowners can sort of sit back and think, well, this doesn't apply to us either. Of course, for some developments, that would require current homes to go as part of other plans. But that's where resident voice, getting the broadest range of opinion as possible, and making sure that the plans are as fair as possible, and making sure that the pricing is as fair as possible. That's where all of that kicks in. But I guess what I would say is, after 15 years of watching people just struggle with ever higher rents or living in very poor quality accommodation, the one thing that myself and a lot of my colleagues feel very passionately about is, until this country just frankly builds more homes, these problems will get worse. Final question. Will you be willing to keep meeting with Ladywood Unite after the election if you are voted in? And is there anything else you'd like to say to the voters who are watching as they consider whether you'd make the best representative for them as they face this plight with the regeneration in process? I'm very happy to keep meeting with Ladywood Unite. I was very pleased to meet representatives just last week, and I'm glad that we've been able to, have a reset of that relationship. As I say, my way of operating, I always go to all the residents I can first, but I do engage with campaign groups and community groups. And I'm very happy to carry on doing that, and very happy to meet Ladywood Unite on a regular basis post-election. What I would say to all residents watching is, and if you're particularly worried about the regeneration, my style over 14 years, the way I do my job is to be upfront and honest with people about what can and can't be done, but then to use the full leverage of the platform that I've had as a member of parliament, and hope to have as your MP going forward, to represent, to advocate, and to just frankly keep on pushing to get the best possible deal. So even where I'm not directly responsible for something, or the power and the legal authority sits somewhere else, I just keep going, and I keep going until the bitter end, because I'm always determined to stand up for all residents, do my best that I possibly can within the parameters I have, but to push at those boundaries, and to keep asking for information, even if I know I'm not directly entitled to it, just to keep the pressure on and the scrutiny on to get the best possible deal for residents. And I've always done that in all of the time I've been a member of parliament, and I will do it going forward as well. Thank you very much, Shabana Mahmood, for giving us your time and for answering these questions. It's been brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you.